We are absolutely thrilled for you to meet our guest today. He's a badass animal rights activist with a rich history speaking up for and helping animals. Without further ado,
all right, welcome on, Antdog. We are so excited to have you on today and to talk with you. First, I'd like you to tell everyone how long you've been vegan for and then what led you into activism.
Wow, okay, I've been vegan for 11 years now. I think that's a long time to be vegan. What led me to activism was, honestly, I had an activist that I looked up to a lot. His name was John Sackers, and I'd watch his music videos. And he came to the restaurant I was working at, and I cooked his food. I thought that was pretty cool. So, I started internet, what's it called when you stalk people on the internet? And I found out that he was staying the night at my chef friend's house. And I was like, yo, John Sackers stayed the night at your house? That's crazy. So I go and, I'm stalking and I'm like, oh, he RSVP'd an event. I'm going to the event too, because I'm all fangirling because my hero is in town. And so I go to this house and we rehearse for a swap speciesism disruption at Whole Foods. It was a DXC event. And that was my first time being around other activists. And I was around my hero at the time. And we just went and did our first protest a few days later after that rehearsal. And that swap speciesism demo that we did in Whole Foods was pretty crazy. And that was my first protest. And I just follow different people like Gary Yourofsky, John Sackers, Earthlings Ed, Joey Cardstrong, and I don't know why his name is phasing me, but he did the 365-day vow of silence.
James Aspie.
James Aspie, yeah.
I'm glad you mentioned him because I wanted to bring him up in my interview, or when I was watching it back, I was like, oh, I should have mentioned James Aspie. He was a big inspiration to me too when I first went vegan.
I watched him break his vow of silence on the live TV because that was 10 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
So those were my big influences back then. And so I just kind of wanted to be like them and speak up for the animals because when I had first went vegan, I told my whole family, I'm like, yo, you wouldn't believe what I've been exposing myself to lately. And now that I know these truths, I've got this sitting on my heart and I want to show it to you guys. And hopefully you guys will come to the same conclusions and make the same changes I did once I came to these truths. And when they didn't make those changes, I was like, oh, well, maybe other people will listen. So that's kind of...
It seems like that's a big struggle with a lot of people, is getting your family and people close to you to listen.
Yeah, it was really disappointing that they still haven't made those changes. And so, if I can't convince the people that are closest to me to go vegan, but, I can talk to a stranger out in the street. First conversation we have too, and they're leaning more towards a plant-based lifestyle now, or at least have the resources to start looking into these things. I feel like it's really important to get the message out there so that people can actually be exposed to the truth and know what's going on. Because when I found out all of these things, I was like, I can't believe I've been lied to my whole life, and everybody deserves to know the truth. So
yeah,
for sure,
I absolutely agree. It's all about finding those people who are open to the message, who aren't closed-minded and closed off and lack empathy. But I'd like to go into a little bit more about your activism. If you could choose a favorite moment, if you had to pick, what would be your favorite moment doing activism?
I mean, honestly, there was another time that John Sackers, it's crazy he always comes up, but he was hitchhiking across the country, and I met up with him at a DXC march or something in California, and we carpooled out here to St. George or something like that, and he stayed with me for a day or two, and in that day or two we recorded a music video and recorded a song. And that song is even though nobody listens to my music, that song is epic to me. And that was my favorite moment of activism. And even though I feel I probably haven't gotten much outreach with it, it's just, I like the art of it, and it's like it expresses myself in a way where it's just like I'm just on the beat speaking truth, and I like it. But
yeah,
I
that's
guess,
a great way. Sorry, I
yeah.
didn't mean to interrupt you, but that's a great way to like you said, like use your personality and get the message out there. And maybe if it was something that you like did more too, like it would get more of a reach as well.
Yeah, I think a big thing for me is just like it's something that I enjoy doing, and so it's like activism has to be fun for me. So like it was a concept that you introduced to me, like pleasure activism is like, you know, even though sometimes a lot of like activism feels like work. It's almost like a job. It's something that I almost feel like I have to do. Because, you know what, I tormented animals for so long growing up, and now it's like I'm trying to make amends and move forward and like make it up to the animals for like all the torture and abuse that I caused for my first 21 years, you know, and now it's like, yo, like I really gotta apologize to all the animals. Like, how can I do that? Like, for generations, I'm gonna try to save you now, you know? So.
Yeah, and is that the song that you made with John, is that on your YouTube channel?
Yeah, it's called Vegan Prophecy.
Okay, I'll link it in the video below, so if you guys want to hear that song, you can click below. And then, so you talked about some good moments doing activism. Have you ever had activism go wrong? And what happened? What did you learn from that?
I mean, I can tell you different types of experiences. I mean, okay, so there's one where we did a little cube of truth, and someone came by, we had this great, awesome conversation, like he looks at the footage, and like we talked about different subjects, you know, the dairy industry and what happens there. We talked about, you know, what happens to pigs, and just some of the standard practices that, you know, we talked about the environment, and we just had like this big, huge conversation, and like he was shaking my hand at the end of the conversation, and we were talking about how he wanted to transition to more eating plant-based foods. And by the end of the conversation, like it seemed to me like he was like confirming like his convictions, like, yeah, I want to be vegan now, like I'm going to try to make changes, and thank you for all the resources. I'm going to look into all this stuff because now I'm really curious. And so like it just seemed like he was going down the rabbit hole of going vegan, you know? And so I was really excited to have like a tally and be like, wow, like, you know, that was so great. Like, I love that I'm able to help people go vegan. But it was like a few months later, you know, I'm out driving, getting some food, and I see this food at a courthouse, not a courthouse, but like a food court type area outside. And he's sitting at the table, probably on a date with some girl. And I walk up, I recognize him. I'm like, yo, what's up? And I'm like, you know, I'm like gonna follow up with him, like, hey, that's really cool. I remember we had this conversation, like, how's that going? And I look at his plate and it's like full of animal flesh. And I'm like,
Oh no.
oh, so you didn't actually like, it's like you made the connection, but you didn't align your actions with your values of that day. And so I was a little bit disappointed, you know?
Do you think it was something that you did wrong though? Or like, is it just the fact that like we almost need like enough reminders to like align our actions?
Yeah, well, there's two things about that, and it's one, take everything with a grain of salt, because just because you have a great conversation with someone doesn't mean that they are going to go vegan, even if they say that they are. And so like I don't want to beat myself up over it, because I'm like, wow, even when I do have the like better conversations with people where I feel like I'm really reaching into your heart and like, you know what I mean, and you really feel like, oh yeah, they're like making the connection, like just to be patient with people, because most people aren't going to go vegan overnight. And like you were saying, I think that one concept that I learned was called like a point system, where like maybe that person needed 1,000 points to go vegan, and that conversation that I had with them gave them 500 points. Now maybe their cousin goes vegan and that gives them another 100 points, or they go and watch that documentary and that's another 50 points. And so maybe they just need a couple more things to help push them in the right direction. You know, whereas other people may only need 20 points to go vegan, and that's just a little push that they needed, you know? And like for me, I didn't need that many points. but it wasn't the first person to tell me, hey, you should go vegan. It was like 3 people who told me to go vegan. But that's why, like, don't be a closeted vegan, like, be an outspoken vegan, because it might be, 4 years down the line that they finally make the connection because for the first time you actually said something,
Yeah, I've definitely made that mistake in the past as well. And you're not helping anybody by not telling them the truth. So it's important to always speak the truth. And if somebody watching wants to help animals, where should they start?
If they want to help animals, like in what way?
Just there's a listener who's watching, they hear that animals are suffering right now, and they're like, well, I want to help, but I don't know what to do. Maybe they feel powerless. Where would you tell them to start?
Well, it really depends on like what form of suffering we're talking about, because there's so many different avenues where we can talk about cats and dogs and spay and neuter and strays and things like this, and that's a whole field in itself, where we have animal shelters and adoption and things like that, where you bring this into your household, or you have animal sanctuaries where they've rescued animals from these farms or from abusive homes or wherever they may come from, where they need donations or people to come and help them with their sanctuary in any kind of way, whether that be building or just picking up poop or feeding and things of this nature, or helping animals in the sense of raising awareness in factory farms and slaughterhouses, because billions of animals are being subjugated to Holocaust-like conditions. And so, going out in the streets and protesting, or whether that be like making music, or be like make coloring books, or children's books, or making podcasts, wearing vegan t-shirts in public, having conversations with people, like in every avenue of life, like there's a way to speak up for animals. And I think the change starts within. Change yourself first, and then, change the world outside of you. They always say change starts from within. So saving animals with every meal of my day, and then taking it a step further to help other people make the connection so that they make different decisions too. And we all have a domino effect with each other, because when one person goes vegan and they influence another person to go vegan, and they influence another person to go vegan, and that person may actually have like a lot of clout or something, and like have 1 million followers, and they tell all their followers like, hey, I went vegan, and now I'm gonna tell all my people they should go vegan too. And then they might inspire 100,000 people to get 50 more points, and I think that's powerful. So you don't have to have 1 million followers to get your word out. What you could just speak up with your family, you can speak up with your friends, the people at your school, people at your work, or you can actually go out in the public and talk to people one-on-one. And there's so many different avenues of activism in itself too, whether that be marches, cubes of truth, holding signs, going inside of restaurants and speaking up. It could be going outside of a slaughterhouse and stopping the trucks, filming inside of the slave cage trucks where they transport the animals, documenting. You could do undercover research. You could get involved with different animal rights groups that are doing different things. Like you have DXC, Animal Save Movement, Anonymous for the Voiceless. And it really also depends on where you're at too, because you could be in a larger city, you could be in a smaller city, and how you approach is going to be different. Whereas if you're in a bigger city, you can look up any of those groups, network with those people, and get involved. And that's a really easy way into a vegan animal rights community. Whereas in a smaller city where those things may not be established, start establishing those things. If not you, then who? If not now, then when? So sometimes you have to be the person to just create that community. And then from there, all you need is one other person to do activism with you, because it could be scary to go out by yourself. You can go out by yourself and raise awareness. I've done things where I would just go to a drive-thru, like let's say McDonald's, and I would just write a sign, and I would just stand in the drive-thru with my sign and just look people in the eyes while they order their food, and just with a message. And everybody who would go through the drive-thru, they'd be like, yo, this guy's spitting facts. And I'm like, yeah, I am. And then like a manager would come out and be like, hey, can't have you here. You got to go on. So I'd be like, okay, there's a KFC right next door. I'll take my sign and I'll go stand in their drive-thru, you know?
Yeah, that's awesome. So what if someone's listening that they hear all this and they're like, this is a completely different language than I even speak right now. Like, what is a cube of truth? What is DXC? What is activism? Like, they're not even vegan and they want to help animals. And they're like, whoa, I love animals. I would never hurt an animal. Never. But I can't go vegan. I'm not ready to give up the meat and the dairy and the eggs and the things that I enjoy or that I think I need. What would you say to that person watching?
I mean, how strong is your own conviction? You know, it's like you got to have your own testimony with veganism. Like, what brought you to this? Why are you doing it? And I think the why is really important too, you know. And why for me is the animals, you know, I see what they're going through. So you see what they're going through. Some people's conviction is so strong that as soon as they find out, they want to go scream off the rooftops. And if that's the case, then join the DXC and the Cube of Truth and all of these different types of events. And really just look into all of them, because like a Cube of Truth basically is just a group of people showing footage of factory farms and slaughterhouses on TV with truth signs, and anyone interested in the truth, they can come get it. We'll sit there and speak facts to the community, and which is one of my favorite forms of activism, because you get to have those conversations with people while they're watching the footage. Whereas the animal save movement is the people who go and stop the slave cage trucks. They film inside. And you can do this on your own too.
What's a slave cage truck, just for our listeners?
Oh yeah, my language might be a little different. So a livestock trailer, basically you have trucking companies who transport livestock. But livestock, when you break down that word, what is it? It's a living being. It's a living sentient being who's been enslaved, probably bred on a factory farm with a premeditated murder date, you know? So I call them slave cage trucks. Just like we had slaves on trains, slaves on ships, we got slaves in trucks, you know? So the whole system it's literally slavery. Like, that's why I say it's a Holocaust, you know? And we're slaughtering billions of animals. It's needless murder on top of that. Like, the fact that we don't need to do it is part of the conviction too, because I think we need to hold people accountable for their actions. Because every time you go to McDonald's or Wendy's or Carl's Jr. or whatever restaurant, most of the times, like, you're literally supporting these factory farms. You're paying the slave cage truck driver, you're paying the slaughterhouse worker, you're paying
and the grocery stores.
Everybody is shaking money hands with the oppressors. And when you decide, no, I'm not gonna eat the animal flesh today, no, I'm not going to contribute to this systematic violence, I'm just going to be compassionate and eat plants. Like, that's when you take your money and stop feeding the machine, the system of oppression and violence.
Because we vote with our dollar.
We have power. All right, so I want to transition a little bit. One thing that a lot of people worry about when it comes to going vegan, eating a plant-based diet, is their fitness and getting enough protein. So what would you say to these people?
Well, I mean, I'm not a fitness coach or anything like that. I think if you wanted top tier advice, find people who are doing what you want to do. So if you want to be a bodybuilder, or if you want to be a marathon runner, or if you're into like Olympic swimming, like, find the vegan people who are doing those things, the coaches, and you can get guidance from people who are living the lifestyle that you want to live.
Because they are out there. There are vegan fitness coaches, there are vegan fitness athletes, there are vegan fitness people who are in the Olympics.
Bodybuilders, people who are doing really well in different sports. There's a movie, Game Changers, you guys can check out, that highlights a lot of different vegan athletes and plant-based athletes, and just shows that it's not going to hold you back from your performance. So
yeah, I just say model success, because that's going to be the fastest route to your goals when it comes to like just getting the right information for what you're trying to do. But also,
oh, sorry.
I was gonna say about getting protein, I think it's funny because there's like this new information going around that I've been like, oh snap, like I totally didn't even think about it that way. Because, okay, so we all know that protein is a chain of amino acids created through photosynthesis. Plants transform sunlight and water into proteins. But it doesn't actually transform it into protein. It's still just amino acids when you eat them. As a vegan, I don't even eat protein. I eat amino acids. And then my DNA takes all those amino acids and says, okay, we need this one, we need this one, we need this one, and we're gonna make some nose cartilage out of it, and we're gonna put it together like that. And then your body makes the proteins out of the amino acids. But when you get protein from animals, your body has to take those established proteins and break it apart back into amino acids. And then your DNA takes those amino acids and says, let's put it back together into a protein. So when you get animal protein, you have to break down the protein back into amino acids, and your body has to break those amino acids back into protein. And so like that whole like molecular process, it's just so like...
It sounds like you'd be losing out on the quality of the protein in that way as well.
Yeah, you're ultra processing your like as below microcosmic world to get nutrients and stuff. But when you get the protein, when you get the amino acids from the plants directly, it's just more like a clean source of energy, you know? It's like putting better gas in your car, you know, the premium stuff.
Well, when our bodies have to work to break that protein down, that's energy that you're losing. That totally makes sense. I had no idea.
Yeah.
I love learning new things.
It actually kind of makes me mad because a lot of times I go to a restaurant and they're like, what kind of protein do you want on your burrito? And I'm like, what do you mean by what kind of protein? Are you asking me what kind of animal flesh, like what type of animal flesh I want in my food? Because a pig is not a protein. A cow is not a protein, okay? It rubs me the wrong way when you like refer to a chicken as a protein type. Like, no. Do you mean to ask me what type of animal flesh I want on my food? Like, no, get that away from my food. Please change your gloves. You know?
Please change your gloves.
And everything has amino acids in it. All plants contain amino acids. And the idea that plant foods are not complete proteins or they don't contain the full spectrum of amino acids has been disproven. It still does circulate, but that is disproven. All plants contain all of the essential amino acids, just in varying degrees. And our bodies are very intelligent. As long as we're eating enough, they can salvage and put together and, like Anthony said, create whatever it wants out of these amino acids. But it's not well understood.
I think it's really important to have health and fitness goals. You may not have to be like a bodybuilder or climb Mount Everest, but you should like exercise, if not daily, like every other day. I think it's really important for our longevity. And like as vegans too, like we kind of represent the movement. Like we want to be in shape, and you know, I think that you don't have to work out either. Like we accept you for whoever you are or whatever you do. Like, you know, it's just, I just think that, you know, exercise is important. Like, you know, try to get your mile in, get your steps in, you know.
I feel like, you know, people will look at all different ranges of vegans and pick out the most unhealthy looking one and that they perceive to be unhealthy and be like, oh, they're malnourished or they're not eating healthy. But the thing is with any diet, you know, you need to get everything that you need. You want to educate yourself and you want to exercise regularly and everything. And that's the thing, is like being vegan is not just a diet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's so important. People definitely need to educate themselves, make sure that you are getting everything you need, and don't listen to these extreme things on the news where they'll pick out someone who has an eating disorder or who's been like, you know, fasting and not drinking water or crazy things like that, and then be like, oh look, a vegan diet doesn't work because this person had disordered eating. And unfortunately that happens to vegans, it happens to people who aren't vegan, it happens to people from all different walks of life. So
in order to die from a protein like deficiency, you literally have to starve yourself to death. Nobody dies of protein deficiencies. You never hear about people dying of protein deficiencies, but what you do find is a hospital full of people who are deficient in fiber.
And heart disease.
Well, nobody asks gorillas or hippopotamuses or cows where they get their protein.
Mm-hmm.
And they all get amino acids from plants. So, I mean, yeah.
And they're huge and they're strong.
Way stronger than
Like
humans.
cows eat grass and they're huge. Like, and they make the milk that so many people drink and think is healthy for them, even though they're not a baby cow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's almost like protein's this whole like propaganda. It's like so heavily marketed right now. Like now you go to buy chips, they're protein chips. Your cookies are protein cookies. You can't have just a smoothie. You need to put protein in your smoothie too. Like protein bread, protein pasta. And it's like, is this really even like good for us to be having like so much excess protein, or should we just kind of eat and not worry so much about it?
More common to get too much protein.
Right.
And that's a lot of stress on your kidneys.
Well, most vegans actually are eating more than twice the RDA for protein. So even most vegans are eating twice as much protein as they actually need. And obviously that can vary depending on like if you're weight training and different things like that, your activity level. But overall, from my experience, it's not something I've ever had to worry about. I just eat when I have tracked my food. My protein usually looks pretty good where it's supposed to be.
If you have health and fitness goals in a direction that you're trying to go, whether that be losing weight or gaining muscle, you want to track your calories, because that's going to be the best way to know if you're in a caloric deficit or a surplus. And if you're trying to gain muscle, you obviously want to be in a caloric surplus. And if you're eating a wide variety of different types of foods and you're strength training, that's what's going to build your muscles. Being in that surplus and doing the actual exercise, because you can eat 1,000 proteins or whatever every single day but not work out, and you're not going to see any changes in your body.
I think one thing I wanted to add about the protein like hype or whatever it is, the protein obsession, I think the problem is it causes people to focus so much on protein that they're not getting in all the other things that we need in our diet.
Mm-hmm.
And they're avoiding healthy carbs, and then you're just going to feel low energy and tired, and you're not going to be getting the antioxidants that your body needs, because those come from the colorful, bright foods, not like the dense protein foods. So I think it's just good to get a balance. But moving away from the health, the fitness topic, I just wanted to touch on it quickly because that's a huge pushback that you can get sometimes when you're trying to do activism. But it's important to always keep the focus on the animals. And obviously not everyone goes vegan. So what experiences do you think you had in your life that led you to become vegan and down this path of activism?
I mean, I wouldn't say that I was like some star-seeded, super indigo, like compassion child, like golden soul angel to this world. Maybe a little bit actually. I do feel like I came into this world like predestined to like make changes, and always a little bit different than everybody else. Perhaps a chosen one. Doesn't really feel like it, but a lot of us are chosen ones, and a lot of us are here to raise the collective vibrations on the earth and help us come to a collective awakening. And I feel like veganism is part of that awakening. And you know what, like, we all come from different backgrounds, and I think that it's important that we came from that place of being like full-blown carnists, supporting this system, because we were able to come out of that system. But some experiences that perhaps led me into it is like, I always gravitated towards fruit as a little kid. I loved oranges. I would eat 20 oranges, and you know, I don't come from like the wealthiest family or anything. I remember I lived with my grandma, and she worked somewhere that had a buffet, and she would bring me the 20 oranges, like I was saying. She would just bring me all the fruit from the buffet, and I would literally just sit there and eat all the fruit, and everybody in the house thought I was crazy because I would sit there and eat 15 apples in a row. And you know, the idea of touching raw meat, like I despise the idea of it. I didn't want nothing to do with it.
I feel like most people do.
Yeah,
Understandably.
even meat eaters are like
It's
grossed
gross.
out cooking
All
meat
those
and stuff.
pathogens. And even when I was in college, I remember I would get I started barbecuing a lot because I could use tongs and I didn't have to touch nothing, and that like appealed to me. But I never got in trouble as a kid. I always like was like a goody two shoes kid, you know, and like I had a really strong conscience. If I ever did do something bad, like my Jiminy Cricket would like literally beat me up, and I would stay up all night long like crying to myself because I did something bad. And so like I just always had a very strong conscience. And so, you know, I always just wanted to do right. And I always like came from a place of love and trying to be understanding. And so I guess like not being vegan and not realizing like how much cruelty and violence I was actually participating in, like maybe it was in the back of my mind, like I knew it, but it was just such a social norm that I didn't think about it, you know? And I mean, leading all the way up into going vegan, I mean, like, I don't have like a bunch of childhood experiences that was like, you're gonna wake up vegan one day. Like, my future self didn't come visit me, you know? Like, I had to have someone slap some truth into me for me to wake up and realize, like, yo, what I'm doing is wrong.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
I guess what I'm trying to understand is why do you think some people are able to empathize with animals and then other people struggle to put themselves in their position?
You know, sometimes it could be an age thing. I feel like the older you are, it's like teaching a puppy new tricks or an old dog new tricks, you know? Some people get concreted into their karmic loops. I think that some people just like have a really hard time, like they resist change. But change is inevitable. The only variable is rate. But a lot of people do resist change. But younger kids, they're like sponges for information. And a lot of times the only thing that might hold back a younger person is the influence of the people around them. Like they got their circle of friends making bacon jokes, but then they might have like that one or two other friends that are really understanding. Like, no, he's actually right. So you then at that point as a kid have a choice, you know, are you gonna be with the cool kids making the bacon jokes, or are you gonna go to, you know, this group of kids who may get a little bit more like thumbs downs from the other kids because they're judging, oh, you're with that compassion, you're with, and the world really is like that. Like you'll get ridicule and violent opposition for trying to do the right thing in this world, which is really crazy. So
yeah, and I think a lot of people too have had experiences, like people I've talked to, where maybe the first time they learned that meat came from animals as a little kid, they cried, or they told their parents that they don't want to eat animals, and their parents, you know, essentially conditioned them back into eating animals and to turning a blind eye to
normal. Everyone does it.
Yeah, but children, you know, regardless of if they're a sponge or not, their natural state is already vegan. Kids don't want to hurt animals, and typically when they find out who meat comes from, they're really disturbed by it.
Mm-hmm. I feel like we're born innocent, and then as we grow up, our innocence is stolen from us, and we're taught hatred. You know, like, where does racism come from? A lot of times it's our upbringing. The people around us teach us to be racist, or teach us to be sexist, or teach us to be speciesist. So it's a product of our environment that we just, you know, you're a product of the 5 people that you hang around with the most. They're going to influence you to become who you are in a way. Like, you're in control of who you are and your own destiny and who you surround yourself with. But, you know, after having my innocence taken away from me and being taught speciesism, I had to reclaim my innocence. And now that I'm vegan, I feel innocent all over again because I'm no longer causing harm to others. You know, I'm able to start moving more into forgiveness from the animals and forgiveness from myself, because I have to forgive myself too for everything that I've done. You know, I think that's a big part of it too. And yeah.
And so obviously the vegan movement can be interpreted a lot of different ways. From your experience being vegan the past 11 years, what would be one thing you could change, or one thing that you would change if you could, about veganism and the vegan movement?
I mean, honestly, I think everybody needs to speak up a little bit more. Like, even if you're not going all the big events, like, share on your social media the posts. You know what posts I'm talking about. And they don't all have to be graphic. Just share the cute ones too, like just have the conversations, get a couple vegan t-shirts, like just as a community, I feel like our voice isn't big enough, it's not loud enough, and we're not fighting hard enough. And for those that are fighting, I know a lot of times we can feel like we just can't do enough, or we're not being effective enough, or how can we do more? Because the problem we're trying to solve is so big, and we can only like take little chunks out the monopoly, And so even if you do like really great work and you have helped so many people, like I've been watching Gary Yoffsky's videos, and he's like, I travel all over the world, I've done these thousands of lectures, I've helped hundreds of thousands of people go vegan, but yet here he is still fighting the good fight. Like he done got burnt out and still came back, and he's like, my work's not done. For like Kobe Bryant, like, is the job done? No, it's still got more people to get to go vegan. Like, I don't care if 1 million people was influenced to go vegan by me. Like, let's get 1 billion people to go vegan. Like, why are we stopping? Like, this atrocity is still happening, and it's so big. And me making personal choices different in my life and helping other people still isn't enough. And so, like, we really need everybody to really be making a bigger point, because this isn't a small issue. It's a huge issue.
Yeah.
And the sense of urgency,
Yeah. Is there anything you want to add to that, Kylie?
I was just thinking about like how small of a percentage we are. I looked it up recently. I don't know how accurate this is because I don't remember being asked, but apparently 1% of the population is vegan.
It's somewhere around that.
Yeah, and I thought that was kind of interesting. Like that feels like a lot, but at the same time, that's very small.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, small but powerful. And I think Anthony touched on a good point too about how we need to be speaking up, we need to be doing more, because imagine if you were in their position. That's the approach we should be taking. And animals, they can't speak our language, so they're not able to verbally defend themselves. So I want to know, Anthony, if you were an animal being farmed right now, what would you tell the viewers watching?
Stop being a hypocrite when it comes to what social injustices you're okay and not okay with, because we can look back at past events and say, oh, that Holocaust was pretty terrible, I would never want to support that. Oh, the slavery that we did in this country, that's terrible, we would never want to do that. Oh, the native genocide that we committed in this country, that's not cool, we don't like that. Or even you can look at some genocides happening right now on the planet, we can look at and say, that's terrible, I can't believe these countries are doing this, and that our own government, like, we're paying for it with our tax dollars to send bombs to kill kids in hospitals. Like, it's so messed up, all these different things that we're doing, and we can look at the world as this big, evil, demonic place where all this bad stuff is happening. But then when we look within ourselves, we have to say, oh shoot, am I committing acts of violence in the same way? Because like what you put in is what you give out, like we create our own realities and everything, but we co-create our realities. And what reality are we creating for ourselves when we're ingesting so much pain and suffering and fear, When we consume animals, especially in factory farm conditions, it's almost like we're giving the universe permission to continue generating this like type of energy, this like low frequency, violent nature.
Well, and you're literally paying for the supply and demand in the physical reality as well.
Right, so how can we look at a Nazi Holocaust or what's happening in Palestine and say that's so wrong, we shouldn't bring so much harm and violence to people?
It's so similar to the Nazis as well. Did you know that pigs are gassed in gas chambers very similarly? It's horrifying to watch.
Yeah. Those screams are like one of the worst things you'll ever hear. It's
they
straight out of
use
hell.
Pig screams for horror movies, and they get them from pigs being gassed. They lure them in with mirrors a lot of the time. The pigs get to see their reflection for the first time, and then a wall closes in on them, and then they gas them with CO2 to death, and they scream. And that is a horror that you're paying for when you buy pig flesh.
When I learned about that, it was a new trauma unlocked, because if I was ever in that position, like, dude, no, nobody wants to be lowered into a CO2 gas chamber. We look at what the Jews in the Nazi Holocaust camps, how they put them in the CO2 chambers to kill them, and we're literally doing the same thing to the pigs. So if you're against this, why commit the same act of violence to the pigs, you know? And so yeah, that's just a big thing for me. It's just like, I don't want to live in a violent world, so I don't want to commit violent actions, you know? So I think that we have to reflect on that within ourselves. And that's, I think, another big reason why, like, if we teach our kids not to hurt a spider, like, how are you going to hurt your brother or sister, you know?
Yeah.
Well, they're always saying, learn from history. But then we're repeating it with a different species. It's the same thing. We should learn from what we've done to humans. Don't do it to a different species. Let's discontinue it completely.
To truly be against violence and oppression is to be vegan. That's what veganism is all about. It's a philosophy and way of life which seeks to reduce suffering and violence wherever practicable. It's against all forms of prejudice, discrimination, racism, sexism, speciesism. You know, to be against oppression and to reject violence, like, how could you not?
That's the most violence in the world too. Like, that's what people need to realize is more animals are being slaughtered in slaughterhouses every day than there are people on the planet. Like, that is so much violence that we just turn a blind eye to and don't think about how that's impacting us in our daily lives and in how we treat other people as well. Because if we're treating the most innocent and the most defenseless beings like this, how can we expect to treat each other well? I like how deep you're going. I almost want to ask too, before we end it, about like your spiritual journey and how do you think that going vegan has affected you spiritually?
I mean, I think that spiritualism is what brought me to veganism in the first place. You know, aside from like being exposed to certain truths, I feel like I had a period of my life where growing up, I always knew that there was something wrong with the system, but I didn't know like any solutions or like what to do. I just had a lot of anger within me. And then I followed different spiritual gurus because the question was, why am I here? What's my purpose? How did the universe become created? A lot of people like look towards religion to seek answers, but I started looking within myself and I started just finding different spiritual teachers, you know. I learned about the story of Siddhartha and everything Siddhartha went through. And basically, I came across a couple spiritual leaders who was talking about like karma and how eating animals basically like lowered your vibration and basically made it harder for you to meditate into these deeper levels that allowed you to like ascend in consciousness and basically reach certain realms within your mind. And when I was learning about like different like levels of consciousness and different planes that we could visit and like even channeling extraterrestrials, spirit guides, and things of this nature, a lot of the information coming out was like, hey, like eating animals lowers your frequency and makes it hard, like you're less sensitive to these like subtle vibrations, these subtle frequencies that you can tap into.
Oh, literally, something dead is literally going to be a zero frequency, whereas like if you're eating fruit, that's a high frequency.
Yeah, there's it's called Killian photography, I think. They found a way to like, capture the energy inside of food on photographs, and you can look and you can see like if you take a picture of an apple, it's got this bright glowing orb around it, and then they take a piece of meat and there's no energy coming off of it, no light coming out of it at all. And I think it really does just like lower our vibration, lower our frequency. I felt a lot more spiritual after going vegan. I felt like a lightness to me, like a weight had been lifted off of me that I never even knew that I was carrying.
There's a thing called subconscious guilt. And even though you consciously may not be guilty for the murders that you commit when you're eating bacon, your subconscious and your soul and your spirit within itself says, oh, we've committed killing, and you have a subconscious guilt that plays out in your psyche.
I think that totally makes sense based on the way that people who aren't vegan react to vegans. It's like our mere existence is triggering to them. And then those little subconscious guilt sneak out in like sarcastic remarks or trying to make fun of us or, you know, trying to make themselves feel better by trying to put us down.
And you know what? Like when you die and your soul leaves your body and goes wherever it does, your energy is still in your physical body. Even though like you've detached from it and you're no longer like that body, your energy is still like being held up in there to a certain degree. And it's the same thing with the flesh. It still has part of its aura. Even though the animal soul has left that body and all you're left with is like a pile of flesh, that flesh still has the energy of the animal and all of the stress hormones and chemicals that the brain and body releases when it goes through what it goes through. But basically what I'm saying is that like how you were saying when you pick an orange off a tree, the orange has a bioluminescent glow. It also has an aura. And when you eat the orange, you're also consuming that aura. And that energy is added into your aura, your energy, because we're electrical beings and fruit is electrical. Whereas the dead food is a dead food. It's not electrical. And it still has that aura, and a lot of times that aura is not going to be like a healthy, positive, like high frequency aura. A lot of times it's going to be like a lower frequency, fear, death, and
and then physically it's got blood and hormones and tendons and toxins that the animals store in their tissues as well.
And if we're coming to a collective awakening and spiritual enlightenment and ascension and we're star-seeded and indigoed on this planet and we're all just here for love and kumbaya, then we cannot do it around a circle of violence on the plate, because peace begins on the plate, and veganism is the new peace sign. So don't come at me with none of that peace talk when you have oppression and violence on your plate every day, man.
Preach.
Yeah.
I love it. How do you feel like your life would be different if you hadn't gone vegan and you hadn't found this path? You can think about it for a minute. I know it's a deep question.
Well, you know, like, I feel like it kind of led everything I did, you know, like from going to go work at a vegan restaurant to, I don't know. Like, honestly, I don't know.
You followed your passion. Where were you before that? Like, before you found your passion for veganism, like, where did you see your life going? Like, where did you get your sense of purpose from? What was your mission?
I mean, at first, my mission was just, it was just kind of empty. Honestly, like, I knew that I had a visionary, like, mind, and, like, I wanted to get that out somehow, but I didn't really, like, have a message to deliver. But when I obtained veganism, it was like, that's my message. If I'm going to bring any change to this world, that's going to be my message, because out of all the problems in the world, I just don't really have the power to solve or fix. I feel like there's nothing I can really do about so much of what's going on in the world. But when it comes to what's happening to the animals, I have a choice every single day where I can make a difference, and not just a small difference, but a big difference. So had I gone another route, I feel like whatever route that was, it ultimately would have led back to me going vegan, because all it took for me was a small push forward to go vegan. And that push would have happened at some point, whether it been when I was 21 when I went vegan or a little bit later.
Yeah. And you talking now about how you kind of picked that as you're like, this is the one thing that I'm willing to stand for. I'm willing to make this my mission. Makes me think back to what you were talking about earlier with people who point their fingers at vegans, like, you were talking about people who they're against bombing, they're against war, they're against all these different violence things and oppression, while they're still contributing to animal oppression. And I think really what it is that that's something that they don't have to hold themselves accountable for, because they know that they're not involved in the bombings that are happening, they're not involved in the genocide, so they can speak up against it because they have no guilt in it. But as soon as it's something that they're a part of, they're just going to turn a blind eye to it because they don't want to change. But really it's the people who are willing to change that make change in society, obviously. Kylie, is there anything else that you're thinking, or where's your mind going right now with all this?
I'm just thinking about how much he emphasized eating fruit and how we talked about like how healthy it is and the frequencies and everything. Like, I love all the different topics we went into. So, you know, eat fruit, not animals. It can be that simple.
You can make the world a better place by being a better person, and going vegan automatically makes you such a better person because now you're not contributing to oppression and violence. Your frequency is higher, and I feel like now you're going to start inspiring and influencing the people around you to also make the same adjustments in their life, which is ultimately going to create less suffering and harm in the world and also raise the collective vibration amongst us. And we're starting to heal Mother Earth because she's crying right now, and we gotta listen. We gotta be like this for Mother Earth's tears. Listen to her tears.
We don't want to be a virus on the earth.
We're not a cancer.
Not
we're the
just
immune system.
the
of
tears
Earth.
of Mother Earth, but also the screams of her children,
Yeah.
the baby animals who are being slaughtered every day.
But God put them here for us, so we got dominion over them. So we could just do whatever we want, cut everything that we just said, and just. I know people use religion, you know, people use the name of God to do the actions of demons, but, you know, we're here to spread, you know, we're doing God's work right now. We're doing angel work right now. Like, all of us got angel wings on our back, and we're just, with our pixie dust, trying to make the world a better place. That's all vegans do. You know, you think that we're annoying because our dust gets everywhere, but, shoot.
It's magical.
Yeah, it is. It's magical.
And one thing I think people might hear and get triggered by is you saying how it makes you such a better person to be vegan. But I just want to say, when we're saying that, at least from my perspective, I'm talking about myself. Being vegan
I'm not better than you.
Right, being vegan made me a better person. So that's why we say if you want to be better, I think being vegan will make you a better person. If you're already a great person, now you're doing one less harmful thing in the world, and now you're spreading a positive message. So it's really just a win-win, and it's a choice. It's a choice, and that's something people forget. And once you realize it's a choice, you're either choosing cruelty or you're choosing kindness.
Yeah, and like I've said before, like when we're saying, to emphasize on that, like we're saying that we're being better. We're not saying like, oh, we're better than anyone else. I'm being better than who I was yesterday. I'm being better than who I was before going vegan.
Right, and that's not the only way we're trying to better ourselves either. Like, I know you know me. Like, we're always trying to better ourselves. Anthony, you're always trying to better yourself. Animals just really need our voices, and that's why we try to speak up for them. And we hope that you will listen to this message and just be open-minded to all the information that Antdog gave today. I know some of it might just seem like way on a different frequency, but as soon as you can have an open mind, then you're letting in new information, you're getting new downloads, you're becoming a more knowledgeable person, and knowledge is power.
And I think that's the purpose of life.
To learn, to learn, to try to make the world a better place.
Be open-minded.
To suffer, to go through hardship, for it to make you a stronger individual.
Whatever your life may be, but we just want to thank you so much for joining us today, and I'm going to leave all of Antdog's information below so that you can find him. And thank you so much for coming on, being our first guest. You were
Much
so
love
awesome.
and peace, yeah, for sure. Thanks for
Thank
having me
you.
on. I appreciate it. It's been fun talking to you guys. And
Appreciate all the new knowledge.
Woo! Vegan power.
We be out here chalking corporate property, showcasing hypocrisy on a hot to mastery. This is vegan prophecy. Check out the philosophy. Show compassion over cruelty and start to live in harmony. The universe's symphony is vibrating oh so heavenly. Hell is not too far to see. Just take a look at the meat industry. Them animals we breeding oh so freely. Then we treat them like their property. We protest fearlessly and furiously.
Join the animal rights movement, spread the vegan word. Vegan prophecy, yeah, make your voice heard. For all the vegan superheroes, a standing ovation. Every earthling deserves liberation.